What's up, folks? We're back. This video is unscripted. We're going off the cuff because I was tired and did not write a script. My plan is on Sunday to kind of just like write several so that way they're prepared for the week. But obviously I wasn't even making videos last Sunday, so you know, stuff happens. But I have my first day of like work today. I just did some computer training, so I think I'm like actually doing work tomorrow. I'm kind of excited. I think I'm gonna be bagging groceries. Anyway, so real quick before we get into like what I'm talking about, and you'll notice that my computer is still on. It is because I have I'm talking about some books, so I have them pulled up so that way I know all of their titles and stuff. Anyway, I opened my analytics app today, like the YouTube analytics one, and I was at 20 subscribers. And it's just very cool. I'm very enthused. Thank you guys for that. Oh, I have this plan. I couldn't find any Lego sets that were 20 pieces that were like actually Lego sets, but I figured that when we hit like, I found one for like, that's like 48 pieces. So like when we hit 50, I could build that Lego set and just upload like me doing that and maybe talking about something, and then I can rearrange where we are a little bit so that way I can show them in the background, and then it's like I said, it's how many people we have, and I just thought that would be cool. I clicked on something. Anyway, so let me know what you think about that idea, and if you know of any like cool small sets. I think I might have one. I have this one. It's a mini Millennium Falcon, and it's 75 pieces. So it's 74, but when we hit 75, I think I could do this one. I figured that would be fun. I have a couple of other small ones, but they're bigger numbers than 75, just because when my mom buys me Lego sets, she doesn't tend to buy me like the really, really small ones. But I found one at Target. It's 48, and so I figure at 48 subscribers, I will order it, and then it will be here when it's 50. That's my game plan. Anyway. What we were talking about is the book series Grace Notes by Ruby Landers, except for I didn't know there was a prequel book, so we're not talking about that one because I haven't read it. I am on Goodreads, and I have them pulled up here. I didn't realize that there was that one because Amazon didn't tell me about it when I was reading them, so I haven't read it. So we're not talking about that one, but we're talking about the three main books, not the prequel one. So these three books are Falls from Grace, Graceless, and Saving Graces. Falls from Grace is peak behavior. Like it's a book that I've reread more than a couple of times because I really enjoy it. I think its writing is really strong. I think there's a really strong sense of plot, and all of our characters are well developed from beginning to end. There's always a couple of moments. So these are Kindle Unlimited books. This isn't going to be like the only time I talk about Kindle Unlimited books, I fear, but so when it comes to Kindle Unlimited, it's really easy to publish on Amazon because you need basically, there's like no checking. It's self-published, and I think these are self-published as well. I don't know for sure, but they're on Kindle Unlimited, which leads me to believe they are self-published because most of the time when you self-publish through Amazon, your book ends up on Kindle Unlimited, which means my family pays for Kindle Unlimited. So I read a lot of books in there because we have it. So I read these. And I read the first one for the first time a couple of years back, and I really enjoyed it. And I've reread it a couple of times since then. And then here about 6 months ago, I reread it again, and I was like, you know what? I'm finally gonna download book 2. Because I'd never done it before. And I read book 2, and I was like, okay, it's less good than book 1, but I can forgive that, and I'll read book 3. Book 3 kind of destroyed the image of book 1 and book 2 I had in my head, just due to like what it did with some characters and some plot points, and I figured we'll just kind of like go over that. Because I don't know if I mentioned this, but I am a creative writing major, so really all I ever do in my classes is talk about writing. So secretly, I'm good at that, in theory. Anyway, so Falls from Grace follows Bryn Marshall, who is currently a lifeguard in California, and she has dropped out of med school a few years prior because of a mental health crisis and a suicide attempt that afterwards she just quit med school. So her best friend, Noah, who makes like indie music, gets an offer to go work with Savannah Grace, who's this big country star. But the thing with Savannah Grace, our other main character, is that she was married to this guy, and together they were a really famous country duo. Together they were like a duo, and they released these albums together, and they were a kid, and then he cheated on her like several times, and so she divorced him. But now it's like this is her first album by herself, or like, you know, on her own outside of this duo. So then it's like so she wants to make sure it's good. So she hires Noah to come be on some of the songs in her album and work on them with her because she likes his music, and she's like, maybe she'll help me because she's got a lot of writer's block going on and just doesn't know what to write. Now, Noah feels bad for Bryn because Bryn is also getting evicted from her apartment because the old lady that owns her apartment is moving, and so she's selling the apartment. So Bryn is like screwed. So Noah decides he's gonna lie, and he's gonna say Bryn is his wife, and she's gonna come with him to, I think they're in Vermont. And this works great for a little bit, but then slowly Bryn and Savannah start falling in love, and Bryn starts helping them make music, like on accident at first, but then they find out Bryn is actually really fucking good at playing the piano and singing, and Savannah's like, come make music with us. And so then it's like Bryn is having this whole like mental breakdown because she's like, oh no, she thinks I'm married, but I'm in love with her, so like I'm falling in love with her. And Savannah's also having this mental breakdown because she's been cheated on several times, so she's like, oh no, I like Noah. I don't want to do this to Noah. I don't want to have an affair with his wife. So Bryn goes to Noah and is like, hey, I think we need to tell her. I can't do this anymore. And he's like, yeah, but wait till after we record the album. Then Savannah finds out, because she'd asked Bryn about their wedding a few months prior. And Bryn, or I don't know how long prior, a few weeks probably. And Bryn had been like, oh, big affair because it's what my parents wanted. And then later on, Savannah's bandmates asked Noah the same question, and Noah went, oh, no, it was a small affair. It was just us and our friends. Which honestly, I think she could have lied her way out of that one, but Bryn didn't. Also a really important note, Bryn is sober. She had issues with alcoholism prior to her suicide attempt in med school, and then got sober afterwards. And Savannah's ex-husband, I believe his name is Colt, but to be honest, I don't remember. He also has issues with alcohol, so Savannah in this moment connects those two things, and she's like, Bryn is an alcoholic, Colt is an alcoholic, Bryn's a bitch. Which isn't true. Bryn isn't a bitch. Bryn actually feels really bad about this. And then the rest of the book is kind of about Bryn getting signed to make music on her own because she's on these songs in this album, and she's like a really good singer, so she starts making music on her own. But she makes this whole album, and it's all dedicated to Savannah, but she's also not been talking to Savannah because Savannah personally was like, I don't want you to talk to me, I don't want you to reach out to me, I don't want you to do any of that. But Bryn has still been talking to her son because her son's like 3 years old, and he doesn't know why Bryn has left, so Bryn still FaceTimes him every day. And then they end up doing a concert together because the record label is like, you guys were on that album together and everyone really likes both of you. So she's gonna open for you, and then you're gonna sing a song together. And then they get together and it's all really nice, and that's its conclusion. And this book was really good. I didn't like the fact that Savannah made that jump for Bryn just because I didn't think it made sense. Her and Bryn had several conversations about Bryn's alcoholism earlier on. They talked it through, earlier on, because Bryn was temporarily Savannah's nanny for a minute, and so they talked about her alcoholism, and it just didn't make sense to me in that moment that she would weaponize it against Bryn like that. But to be honest, overall, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Peak book. Then we get book 2. Book 2 is about Lane, who is Savannah and Bryn's nanny, and Cassidy, Savannah's younger half-sister, who shows up one day and is like, I want you to give me money. And Savannah's like, well, I'm not doing that, but you can stay here. That's fine. You're my family. You can stay here and I can help you get into the music business. Now, the issue with this book is Lane and Cassidy do not have that same foundation of their relationship, which worked out really well for Savannah and Bryn because they'd been friends for so long. I was rooting for them. I was like, they really know each other and they really are in love with each other. In this book, you don't get that as much because kind of right away, Lane is non-binary, just for heads up. Lane is like, God, Cassidy's so hot. And Cassidy's like, wow, Lane is so hot. And that kind of seems to be their only motivation to be towards each other, is that they think the other one's hot. And so it like lost me a bit there, but they still had some aspects of their relationship, like Cassidy being from Cassidy and Savannah are both from, I believe, Nashville. They're from the South, and so they've got like a lot of. Savannah had the same issues when she originally ran away from home because her mom found out she was bi and kicked her out. So we get that, like, we get some nice character development from Cassidy where she's like realizing that the fact her sister is queer and the fact that Lane is bi aren't bad things, and she's coming to this realization that she is also queer, and that's all great information. Great information, 10 out of 10. Good for Cassidy. Again, their relationship does not have as strong as a basis as Bryn and Savannah's, but I can understand it. Now, another issue is in Falls from Grace, the first book, there was a really hard emphasis on the fact they make music. So we got lyrics all the time, and like lyrics and album names, and like all of this stuff was really important. Now, in this second book, Lane doesn't make music, but Cassidy does. We literally never see Cassidy make music. Like 3 times she picks up a guitar. She never makes music. She literally does not even sing until the end of the book. Like the last chapter is her first like show under a different name, because she doesn't want people to know that she's Savannah's sister, because at this point she's like come to this realization that she doesn't want to get famous just because her sister's famous. She wants to make music because she likes music. But I'm like, babe, we haven't seen any proof that you're really good at music. But you know, now then we get into the third book, which is Saving Graces. It's the third book, and it's the one that ruins the first 2 for me, because I have issues with Graceless, the second book, but I could make an argument for it. I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. Like it's not as good as the first one. I probably wouldn't read it again, but if someone else was reading them and asked me if I thought they should read the second book, I would say yes. Now, if that same person asked me if they should read the third book, I would say no. Book number 3, Saving Graces, is about... What's her name? I'm clicking. I think it's Kaylee. But it's about Rosalie, who is Savannah's best friend from childhood. So when Savannah ran away from home, she stayed in Rosalie's house without Rosalie's parents knowing, and there's this whole arc with Rosalie's older sister, and it's all really good except for, so there's 3 point of views in truth going on in this book. There is current day Kinsey, that's her name. Kinsey is Cassidy's bandmate. She plays the drums and also sings, and then Rosalie runs a nonprofit that Savannah funds because Savannah's really rich. And there's also teenage Rosalie from when she meets Savannah onward. Now, the issue with this one to me... Hold up. I'm not going to get into my issue yet. I'm going to give you a brief explanation of the plot. Kinsey meets Rosalie because Lane volunteers at this nonprofit but can't go because they're sick. So they ask Cassidy to fill in for them because they're like, you can go teach them songwriting. I normally just have them do art. So you can teach them how to make poems or something. So Cassidy goes and she meets Rosalie and she's like, wow, Rosalie's hot. And Rosalie's like, no, I'm like 40 and you're like 20. So no, I'm not gonna do that. I don't think their age gap is that big, actually. I believe they're 26 and 37. It's not terrible, and also they did not meet until they were 26 and 37, so it's fine. But Rosalie's really in her head about this. She's like, absolutely not. They end up meeting up again. They go on a date. And then Rosalie's like, actually, I don't want to do this. And just runs away. And Kinsey's really upset about it because Kinsey really likes Rosalie. And at this point in the book, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm vibing. We keep on going. Kinsey and Rosalie kind of end up in this like off and on again friends with benefits relationship for a minute. And then they stop doing that because Lane and Cassidy break up. In the background of this book, the couple from the previous one breaks up. And Cassidy and Kinsey are going on like a mini tour. So they're going on that. Also, I don't think I pointed out my dog today, but she's there. I'm here, you're here, you're not allowed to leave. I forgot to say that at the beginning because I got distracted because you guys are fantastic and I have 20 subscribers. But all of that is still true. Anyway. Where was I? They go on their tour. it's important to note at this point in the book that it's both Kinsey and Cassidy, because occasionally we get points of views from the previous point of view characters from previous books. So occasionally we'll get a Bryn or Savannah or Cassidy or Lane chapter. Both Cassidy and Kinsey have looked at each other and gone, if I didn't have a partner, don't do that. You're friends. Stop doing that. But they kind of keep on doing that. And then Cassidy's like, actually, I'm in love with Lane. So her and Lane get back together, and it's very nice, and I like it. And then Rosalie shows up, and actually before Rosalie shows up, Lane looks at Kinsey and goes, did you sleep with my girlfriend? And Kinsey goes, no, but I really wanted to. And then Rosalie shows up, and they also get back together. And in the teenage timeline, what was going on is Rosalie's older sister is trans, and so their parents find out and kick her out, and then she's not seen again. She hasn't been seen since then, which has been like 20 years at this point. And like, I can't remember what her sister's name is, but the foundation is based around her sister. It's for queer and trans youth that Savannah and Rosalie put together in honor of her sister. But there's also Savannah and Rosalie going on, and Savannah and Rosalie are also kind of in love with each other, and they're like each other's first, and it's like a whole thing. And then Savannah's like, I don't want to lose your friendship, so I'm gonna go over there and sleep with that really, really awful guy, Colt. This is when she meets her husband. And then we get to this weird moment in the end of the book where Rosalie and Savannah have this conversation that fully implies that Rosalie and Savannah are in love with each other, because like Rosalie is looking at Bryn at one point and goes, Bryn looks at Savannah the way that I do, which means she's good enough for her. Now, if you're paying attention, you might have caught on to my issue with this book, which is the fact that everything that goes on in this book pretty much implies that for Savannah and Rosalie, if things had worked out a little differently, they would be together right now. And for Kinsey and Cassidy, if Cassidy had met Kinsey first, they would be together right now. And my computer shut off, but it doesn't matter because I'm not actually looking at anything on there anymore. It's just so upsetting because we establish these really nice relationships, and then we're like, actually, they don't like each other. In another life, in every other life probably, they're not together. And I just dislike it because in the first book, which again, I stated I really, really liked, Rosalie's almost never there. Savannah calls her a couple of times throughout the book, and to my memory, Rosalie never appears in person in the book. So, and Savannah never references having this mindset about Rosalie that Rosalie has about Savannah. But then Rosalie's book implies that Savannah has those same feelings. And I just dislike it because it kind of destroys Savannah and Bryn's relationship, and it also destroys Cassidy and Lane's. I keep on wanting to say Leon. That's not their name. But Cassidy and Bryn's relationship was so upsetting to me for that ending to be that they, like, Savannah wouldn't have picked Bryn. If, like, everything had worked out, if Rosalie had asked her out in the point after Colt and her broke up, I don't think there ever would have been a relationship with Bryn. And that's, like, that's so upsetting. Because, like, what do you mean you had me read that whole book about them just to go? But actually, they're, like, they barely even count. I just dislike it. And also, there's a really heavy focus on Cassidy and Kinsey's relationship in the third book, which I also don't like because I liked Lane. I have some opinions. I don't think Lane was ever a strong enough character to stand by themselves, like, as a main character point of view, and I don't think the book did anything to dissuade me of that opinion. I hate to say it because I really want to like Lane, and I like Lane as a side character in the first book. But the thing is that Lane doesn't really get any personality or any, like, traits outside of being their nanny, outside of being Bryn and Savannah's nanny, and outside of their relationship with Bryn and Savannah. And they do delve more into their relationship with Savannah and, like, the amount that Savannah has done to help them. And I think that's all really nice. But the thing is that Lane didn't really have a character prior to this book, and they don't develop a really strong one throughout it. But again, I could look by it. It's the fact that the third book kind of goes, but their relationship is trash. Anyway, so that's my reviews of Grace Notes. They're the first one I 100% recommend. Good book. They are adult, just in terms of rating. Second one, I like medium recommend, and also for my third one rating that I never gave, I don't know, like, even in context, it's not good. I was trying to think it through. I wanted to be nice and be able to go, well, if you take it out of the context of the other two books, it's better. It's not, because that book causes all of the problems that I don't like. Like, it's not like those problems are started in book 2. All of those problems are brought up in book 3, and I don't like that. But what can you do? So I'd probably give book 3 like a 3-star at max. I really wanted to like Rosalie and Kinsey's relationship, and it had a couple of moments that I did like, but honestly, it wasn't that great. If you have time for one book, I would read the first one, which is Falls from Grace. If you have time for 2 books, and you like the first one enough, I would read Graceless. If you have time for 3 books, I would not read Saving Graces. I would pick another book. Anyways, that's all I have to say today. I don't know what I'll talk about tomorrow. I have some vague ideas, but I don't know how much time I'll have to make a script, so I might just be talking about more books, which I don't really want to do because I don't want to spend all of my time talking about books. I do really like books, but I don't want it to be like what I do. I kind of just want to be talking about stuff. But if you have any ideas and you made it this far of what you want to see me talk about, let me know. I will do my own research, so if you just have like a vague idea, I will do the Googling for you, don't worry. Anyway, say goodnight to my dog. She's still being a twerp, and I misplaced her controller, so I have to look for that. But I also have work tomorrow, so peace.